Yo, this is the Ancient Texan. I'm going to talk to you about a group that seems to be in trouble. And surprisingly, it's not a popular group. And I think it happens to be the same group that ended up getting Trump elected. So there might be some inclination that we should help this group just because they need help. But if, you know, that isn't a good thing for you, then we should help them to help ourselves, um, and try not to get people like Trump elected. And maybe this will make sense as I move forward. I ask Perplexity, which documents all of the statements it makes and gives you a source. And I did not go double check the sources. I find Perplexity pretty accurate, and I think you'll find this information pretty easy to double check. Use any AI system, use Google. Um, what I'm saying here is not a well kept secret. And people that are paying attention already know this. In fact, we know this, I would say a lot of educated people know this. I would say the Republicans know what I'm going to talk about very well. They understand this. They probably also read Vance's Hillbilly Elegy, um, and got the message there. I'm not a Vance fan at the moment, but I did like his book and I did relate to it and understand what I think was the central message of the book, which is kind of the central message of what I'm fixing to say here. Fixin', I call myself the ancient Texan. I'm from Texas, and fixin' is a word we use. You should be able to figure it out from context. I asked Perplexity to rank different demographic groups by suicide rates. And here's what it said: non Hispanic, American Indian, Alaskan Natives have the highest suicide rates. That was actually a surprise to me. So if you're an American Indian, that's not too much of a surprise. If you're an Alaskan, seems like that's what the way we should say it, Native, you have the highest suicide rate. Hmm. But guess who's number two and has been up there a long time? Non Hispanic white males. People that look like me have the highest suicide rate. Wow. How can that be? We've got all our white male privilege stuff going on. And I've been told that I, I should have started counting about 20 or 30 years ago, and because I was told how good I have it with my white male privilege. Growing up in a poor Hispanic neighborhood, I think somebody forgot to give me my white male privilege. And I know they tell me that I get, kind of like a free pass when they see my color, and uh, they kind of overlook, you know, the clear class deficiency that I have. and my not getting along with white rich males or people in power, because I have a little attitude from growing up with the poor people. I was also surprised to find that older adults over 75 have very high suicide rates. Non Hispanic white men in this group reaching 50 suicide rates per 100,000. That's a lot higher than American Indians or non Hispanic white males by quite a bit, 50 per 100,000. White females, um, the highest is white females versus other females, and that's 7.3, which compared to, I don't know how to do that math there. 4 times 7 is 28. It's 4 times lower. Males' suicide rate is 4 times higher than white women. You might assume, they're living in the same household and growing up together, and they're more associated with their own race than other races. So you'd expect them to be living in similar circumstances. But white males kill themselves 4 times as much as white females. Is that just, males like to kill themselves? I mean, what's I want to blame this on the environment. What is tougher about being a white male than being a white female? Is it, we don't know how to deal with our emotions and we don't know how to express them and we have to be macho? Maybe. But we don't learn that on our own. Someone teaches us. We grow up in a society that is not good for white males, a lot better for white females. And I know we're going to look at some stuff like pay and stuff, um, that's still higher for, white males. But I would say that that's not the important stuff. I'm thinking that white males killing themselves is indication that it's not real cool to be a white male. And it's really bad to be an old white male. I go to the UUFN, but I'm not going to tell you my age on here. But United Unitarian Fellowship, and there's I actually count quite often how many males and females are in the crowd, and it's an older crowd, and there are approximately 4 to 5 women per male, because the males are all dead and they don't bring their bodies to the service. And the older you look, if you kind of, mentally segregate into, old people like, retired people versus non-retired people, that kind of just broad distinction, you'll see that the amount of women goes way up. Younger, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, there's probably close to an equal amount of men and women. By the time you get to the old people, all the men have died. What's so bad about being a white male? So it's got other, what the rates are for other racial ethnic groups. But the kind of conclusion is males, regardless of race, account for nearly 80% of all suicides and have a suicide rate about four times higher than average, four times higher than females. Hmm. Men want to kill themselves. That's just it's just the way it is. And here's kind of a table showing the data. You can go look it up yourself. So men want to kill themselves. And the biggest way they do that, by the way, I think is guns. They don't slit their wrist. And they're very effective killing themselves, men are, because they use a gun typically to the temple. So let's see about drug overdose. Young males suffer significantly more drug overdose deaths than young females across all major racial and ethnic groups. The gender gap is substantial. Males die from drug overdoses at more than twice the rate of females, and in some groups, the ratio is even higher. So let's get this straight now. White males kill themselves. It means they don't want to be alive. They don't feel welcome. Old white males kill themselves even more. I mean, what the hell to live for? And they have more drug overdoses, which I didn't include that data here, but yeah, men use more drugs and they die of it more often. So, um, white males show to the world that they're unhappy in their lives by killing themselves and taking too many drugs. Here's the death rate, all ages: males 44 per 100, female 18 per 100,000. Here's surprising. Um, Again, American Indian and Alaskan natives have the highest drug overdose, followed up by black and white males, which have much higher rates than their female counterparts. Young adult, again, the American Indian, followed up by black and white men. Male to female ratios for overdose in young black and white populations are typically 2.5 to 4 times higher for males compared to women. Overdose rates have decreased for males but remain largely unchanged for females. However, males remain at much higher risk. And there's the data in a table. You can go look it up yourself. Conclusion: young males, especially American Indian, Alaskan Native, black and white men, suffer the most drug overdose deaths. The white males held that honor for a long time, but the black man, has caught up with the white male, which is sad. The male to female disparity is large and persistent, with males dying at rates more than double that of females in every group and age range examined. Not good to be a white dude. Okay, let's see how things are going in school. Males drop out of high school at higher rates than females across nearly all racial and ethnic groups. Wasn't there a law passed? In fact, I know there's a law, I just can't remember the name of it, where they passed legislation to help women catch up in high school and in college, to graduate more, to enroll in the STEM. And at the time, women were behind. Well, that's completely reversed itself now. And I'm pretty sure they're not going to pass any bill to help white males because white males are just not popular in our culture. And I can tell you that from being a white male. I know I'm supposed to have my white male privilege to make a shield around me and protect me. But the data says that shield of mine is not working very well. And you can look through this data, but let's let's jump down to the to the real bottom line. And this is true in dropout rates are higher in high school and college for men. But this one is the, kick you in the teeth type thing. Completion rates, women are more likely to complete college in 4 years, 51 for women and 41% for men. Women now receive a higher share of college degrees than men across all major racial groups, with the gender gap in both enrollment and completion persistent and even widening in recent years. Okay, what's my message here? Men kill themselves more, they die of more drug overdose, they're dropping out of high school, they're dropping out of college, they're not completing their degrees. Women are doing it better in college and high school. Women with STEM degrees are as likely to be employed as men with STEM degrees, and STEM degrees pay higher. Not on this data is men still earn more with the same degree, and more men have STEM degrees, so the gap is pretty large between women and men, and women are kind of, you know, stay home with the kids by our culture. Not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just saying it does. So a lot of that goes to explain the higher pay for men over women, and they get STEM degrees and they don't stay home to take care of the kids. That gives them an advantage, and they make more. A lot more men still go into STEM. But see, that whole argument's about those that make it through the system. Like I made it through the system, got my engineering degree. We're talking about men that, for the most part, have not made it through the system, and they're not as likely to make it through the system. They drop out of high school and college. They don't make it through the system, and they kill themselves more, and they die of drugs more. Doesn't that sound to you like a group that's in trouble? They die more of suicide than any other group. Doesn't that tell you that there's a problem here? Mission control, we have a problem. White men also die of more drug overdose. Mission control, we have a problem. You want to go say that, you know, white male privilege is still there because, more men go into STEM and more men make more money than women after graduation, partly because they go into the caring, loving professions like being a nurse or taking care of, a kid in childcare. And that shouldn't be true in our society. But if you're focused on the numbers of what people make, you're missing the whole thing. Kids are dropping out of college and high school. Let me restate that. Men are dropping out of high school and college, and they're killing themselves with drugs and with guns. And when you get old and white, nobody can touch your suicides rates. I'm in the category that just start worrying. I'm a high suicide risk. Hmm. So, should we readjust our thinking about who needs help right now? Is it still the women who are not killing themselves and not dying of drugs, or is it the people that are dying that we should worry about? Should we worry about the money part of this deal, or should we worry about people being dead? See, I've heard this argument my whole life about I should be happy I'm a white male because I make more money. I have an engineering degree. I have an advanced engineering degree. I have a PhD. I got a truckload of experience and I'm pretty damn good at my job. So me making a lot of making a good I've made a lot of money, but me making decent money I think is available to almost anybody that wants to put in the kind of hours I put in, where I was willing to go all over the world, and the number of hours I worked, and just being a smart guy. And I think that would be pretty much the same. Of course, I don't have the facts to prove that. Um, but if you're a woman and did not have children, or your husband stayed home and take care of your child, I would say there's some really good opportunities for you in the STEM fields, especially in engineering. Engineers typically can get work when nobody else can. So if it's all about the money, all you have to do is focus on getting a good engineering degree. Figure out which is the hottest engineering degree. Electrical's always pretty good. I think it's hard as hell. It's harder than my engineering degree, but mine's not a piece of cake either. Got to be pretty good at chemistry. Fair amount of physics too. But see, it's not about money that I'm talking about. Money, as they say, doesn't bring you happiness. The fact that white men are killing themselves and overdosing, there's a message there. And it's a problem that doesn't go away. It gets worse the longer a white male lives in this society. Nobody can top out the suicide rates of old white men. We are king. So it starts in high school, goes through college, and it persists despite the fact that white males are making more money because we got more STEM degrees and we do what we're told to make more money. Despite all the money crap arguments, white males, I would argue, become less happy with age, more isolated, and more likely to kill themselves by either overdosing or just using a gun and putting it to their temple. Our society wears down white males. It wears them down to where they kill themselves. So, since, we've got the white privilege and we got everything going for us so well, how do you reconcile the fact that white males seem to be the most unhappy group in this country? So unhappy we kill ourselves. And I would, if you look at drug addiction rates and um, self-medicated, especially on alcohol. Us white males are at the top of the heap. So since it's so good to be a white male, why is this happening? I would argue that it's not so good to be a white male in America. I am told I should appreciate my white privilege. Um, and start worrying about all the other races and how bad they're getting abused. And apparently, American Indians have a good argument because they're the, they kill themselves. Uh, they almost can keep up with those white males. Not in all categories, but they're getting pretty good at it. I always say when it irritates me. I have a daughter that tells me I should be happy about my white male privilege. We're having a Black Lives Matter argument, and I wanted to say Hispanic Lives Matter because that's a group I identify with, even though I'm white. But I say where I grew up with my, you know, Hispanic buddies, and in a neighborhood that was 80% Hispanic, and that all my friends were Hispanic, and the town I grew up in was Hispanic, El Paso. Um, they just didn't look up us white males and give us our white male privilege cards. I never got my card. And if I hadn't got my degrees, I would have not got to get my white male privilege. And I would argue that I didn't get a white male privilege. I got a almost Hispanic working hard in the slums card. There was no privilege where I was brought up. I mean, I was privileged to be in America instead of I was born, literally 1 mile north of the Rio Grande. If I'd been born 1 mile south, I would have not had the privileges that I have to be an American. And I am thankful for that. And I am thankful for the state sponsored education in Texas that was based on oil money, um, that allowed me to get a good start and make good degrees. I'm thankful for, getting chosen for advanced math and science in high school, where you get a year ahead of everybody else. I was the first group to ever do that in El Paso, anyway. I was the pilot program. And I'm thankful for all that. But almost nothing of that has to do with being white and being a male. You know, the ones that have white male privilege? It's the ones that their kids of men who went to Harvard. If you go to Harvard and you're a man and you have a boy, your child has white male privilege. Of course, if you have a female, she has some pretty good privilege too. But if you're poor with a son of a mechanic, I don't think you get a lot of white male privilege. I just don't think I get my dose, and it irritates the hell out of me for people to say that that has anything to do with my success. I can't say it doesn't have anything to do. Statistically, everything has to do with everything. But most of my success came from working my butt off and having a work ethic starting in grade school. Good parents. Not because they were white parents, because they were good parents. And they valued education. And I have persisted despite how hard it is to be a white male in this society. And I'm saying it's hard because otherwise, why would white males be killing themselves and having drug overdoses and using a lot of drugs? What's the deal there? I don't think you can explain that away. Saying we make more money? Crap. Who the hell cares if you're dead? And it gets worse with age. The older you get and you're white male, you start outstripping everybody else in suicides and drug deaths. Now, first you got to explain why that's happening if it's so privileged to be a white dude. And second, if you care about humanity, you should you should start asking why do old white men kill themselves? Why they just finally had enough and kill themselves? Anyway, I think the data says we got a problem here. Mission control, we've got a problem. Anyway, this is the ancient Texan challenging you to rethink some stuff you think you know. Uh, have a good one, and we'll see you on the next podcast. As I say, hit the subscribe button if you want more of this. Don't hit it if you don't want any more of this stuff.